over the rainbow, where dreams are better than life. There's nobody to save. I sit alone with my head through the sky. Yes, I'm wondering, never asking why. I just see inside, see inside.
Hello, and welcome to the Mechanics of the Maya and to definition. And today we're going to look at one of the rarest phenomena that we have, generally speaking, in human design. I mean, most people consider the reflector to be the rarest phenomena in the general structuring. The reflector represents about 1.4% of the population. So, you know, this is obviously a very specific minority. But when we're looking at the quadruple split definition, the quadruple split definition is just over half a percentage point of the population, 0.63% of the population. You know, that means fundamentally 1 out of every 200 people, something in that neighborhood. The quadruple split definition is indeed something that is very, very rare. As such, it's not something that is discussed a lot. It's not something that is well known, for example, in the human design professional community. There aren't that many human design analysts who have actually had the experience of working with or doing the analyses of those that have a quadruple split definition. So I want to be able to lay out today some very basic things about the quadruple split to give you a sense of the dynamic of this very unique and very rare configuration. The first thing is to recognize that in dealing with a quadruple split just mechanically, we're dealing with 4 different areas of definition automatically that are separate from each other. In other words, 8 centers are automatically defined in a quadruple split. And most quadruple splits, well, you know, on average, just more than half of all quadruple splits have 9 centers defined. The first thing is to take that in for a moment. Think about what that means. If you have 8 or 9 centers defined in your design, and by the way, that can be so for those that have a triple split or a split I mean, you know, any kind of definition can actually lead to a great many centers being connected. But again, here in this minority, this is the standard. And as a standard, it tells you something. If you have 8 or 9 centers defined, nobody's getting in. I mean, it's the first thing to understand about what it is to be a quadruple split, is that in terms of the way in which you process information, not the way in which the different aspects of you are connected, but the way in which you process information, that this way in which you process information is something that, well, you're fixed and nobody can get in. And not only are you fixed, but the fixing is a very, very narrow line. Let me give you an idea of how narrow that is as a limitation. Think about 2 centers, and think about the channel that is connecting those 2 centers. At either end of that channel, you have a gate. That gate, if you see it within the mandala, that gate actually has 1,080 divisions rooted in all of the different ways in which we can break that down in terms of the substructure of the lines, the colors, the tones, and the bases. On the other side, you have the same 1,080 possibilities. And in those 2 possibilities, each of over 1,000, can be any combination of planets that are activating those. Now think about your particular configuration in one aspect of your definition between those 2 centers. That line that you have there, that channel that is colored in, I want you to think about how fixed and narrow that is. As a quadruple split, you are indeed a very fixed person in the way in which you process things, but all of that processing is left in different places of isolation depending on different configurations to activate it. The split definition, 2 aspects, always looking for the bridge, has a great deal in common with the quadruple split. The quadruple split is not like the triple split, in which the open center is something that is a deeply important conditioning dynamic. It is not the case. As a matter of fact, as I said, a majority of quadruple splits have no open centers. It is the bridges. And it is the bridges that are there between those four different aspects. Now look, the first thing to understand about a quadruple split is that other than reflector, they can be anything. You know, they can be a projector, and they can be both a pure and manifesting generator, and they can be a manifester. All of those variations are possible in a quadruple split. And because all of those variations are there, we go back to something that is fundamental in human design. You see, I'm going to show you the great dilemma of the quadruple split because they are so deeply conditioned by bridges. There are so many possibilities of bridgings in the quadruple split that there is a tendency in their life to give up on wholeness, you know, on the possibility of being able to find a way to integrate all of those deeply fixed aspects into one thing, what they are, what they can be. It begins with strategy and authority. I mean, it begins with the strategy and authority. The strategy and authority is the only thing that's going to determine what are the correct decisions that's going to make it possible for you as a quadruple split to find the bridging that is healthy for you. Think about what happens to most quadruple splits. The not-self quadruple split. Because they are conditioned by the gaps. Let me give you an example. Let's say that there are, you know, two aspects of their split that can be joined together by a single gate. For them, that missing aspect is something that is missing in them. It's something that they're longing for, that they're yearning for. It is something that they think they need in order to fulfill that part of themselves. If they have an area between splits in which it takes more than a gate, it takes a channel to bring those aspects together, then they think it's the other person that has the problem. The chances of a quadruple split meeting anyone who is able to bring together all of those aspects in a way that is correct is extremely rare. You see, the thing for the quadruple split is being able to have in their life the diversity of interactions that allow them to rotate the way in which their different aspects are brought together. For most quadruple splits, much of that can be achieved by the combination of family and work life. And family and work life that brings different elements to the way in which those aspects are connected. Think about this for a moment. You have four different areas that are defined. These are life forces. And they're waiting to be able to integrate with the other life forces so that you have the emergence of what is the holistic being. There is nothing more important in that sense for this person than being able to have the possibility of being able to process information through a wholeness. If you're a triple split definition, there's a very simple solution. You can go out into any crowd. You can go out into any cafe. You can go out into any shopping space. You can go out into any environment where there is a neutral public aura, and you can take advantage of that. Because you see, for the triple split, it's not about gates, it's about open centers. But if you're a quadruple split, you cannot do that. It is not going to benefit you to have all of those possibilities of all of those connections bringing together those four aspects. Because you are conditioned by gates themselves and the bridges that they represent, that this is the only thing that is significant for you. And of course, what you're looking for are bridges that are specific, that are for you, that are correct for you. You see, if you're entering into the process correctly, You can have a relationship with one human being in which, let's say, only two aspects of your split are actually connected together through your interaction with them. It does not mean that that is a bad relationship. If you have entered into it correctly in the first place, then this is a way to bring those two areas together that are correct, and not necessary yet to bring the result of those two areas together into the rest of your configuration. Now, half of all quadruple splits are going to be emotional. Their emotionality is going to bring them a benefit. That is, it's going to bring them a benefit if they're operating through their strategy and authority, because their strategy and authority tells them there's no truth in the now. You see, in so many ways, the quadruple split is a sampler. You know, they connect with one being over here and they have certain aspects of their quad brought together. They connect with another being over here and they have certain aspects of the quad brought together. This is an ongoing process until there is a point of, well, we could call it clarity to use emotional language. We could call it pointedness. I mean, the whole thing about a quadruple split is finding that pointedness. And that pointedness does not arise out of an imbalance in the way in which they're integrating with the other. See, it's a dance. You know, that moment with one is a step towards a moment with the other, is a step towards the moment with the other. All of that leads to an integrating of those four aspects. You have to think about the power of seduction. You know, we are a genetic bioform. We are deeply seduced by what we are not. It is the way in which our species has been maintained and kept alive, because we are constantly attracted to what we are not, and therefore we produce mutative offspring. Everything about us is based on us being hooked on what we're not. And of course, you have to see that as a quadruple split, there are so many different hooks for you that you can become a slave to all of those hooks, that each and every one of them have taken on real deep importance in your life. Every single one of those aspects that can bridge together your quad, all of those aspects are alive in your mental space, trying to control your decision-making process. I have to have this. They have a problem over there. I need to have that. They have a problem over there. And you see, because your centers are so defined, it's very hard for the other to find a way in other than through a gate. There is no other way. And so within your own process, you remain very isolated. The most isolated being the quadruple split manifester with his repelling aura. The most difficult being the quadruple split generator. Generators have enveloping auras. As a quadruple split, your enveloping aura is pulling the other into you. And in pulling the other into you, changing your inner balance. Because everything is about your inner balance. What you're going to discover in your process is that each of those aspects of your quad have a way in which they realize themselves through your personality in your life. The way in which they have dominated you. Some areas will dominate people more than others, as an example. It is just something to grasp that you cannot afford to live your life out of just simply one area of what it is that is you. And the difficult thing is that when you get hooked by a bridge, the tendency is to ignore the other possibilities that are there, to take advantage of that single bridge, thinking as not self that that's what you needed. Now you have it, everything's going to be better. It's not the way that works. See, Everything about a quadruple split is the ability within you to be able to sample connectivity. It's your gift. It's your gift. You have so many possibilities of bridges. Each of those bridges you have powerful receptors to. If you're lost in that, then you get lost in the half-life, because that's basically what the quad ends up living. It sacrifices its full life, to have what a split definition, a simple split definition, longs for. Just simply that bridge between those two aspects. And the other aspects, they seem to fade only for the moment, by the way. Because, of course, to live a half-life or a three-quarter life is not what it's about. It isn't. It means that you need to have very special bonds with everyone in your life. That's not true for everybody. It's certainly not true for all of the other configurations. But it is the deepest essential truth for somebody who is a quad. It doesn't matter who the being is. It doesn't matter what their connection is to you. It has to be correct. Because you see, this is what you're about. It doesn't matter what they're carrying. It matters what the connectivity is going to do to you, and you need to be able to control that. I mean, the beauty of a quad, if you look at any quadruple splits design, if you measure them in terms of how everything moves towards the authority, the type in their design, you get to see basically that they have a processing system. They have a way of rotating information and rotating information through the bridges that they're able, to find in their process. If you don't have the right bridges, you don't get this flow that is there, the spiral that brings all of those aspects together into a holistic phenomena, into the expression of the quad. See, the quad is truly here to live their authority. To live their authority. After all, centers are where the functions of the vehicle are determined. With all of that being determined, preset, fixed. The only thing that is important to the quad is how do I get from here to there? What road do I take? Where's the bridge? And you can't know that intellectually. You can't know that from the mind because every single one of those bridges are already there in your mind as negative influences, controlling the way in which you make decisions as a being. And you see, you can really be very, very confusing to the other. Think about what that's like. There you are, you're a quad, 8 or 9 centers defined, whatever kind of aura that you have, and there you are, you step into the other person's aura. It's like, how do I get in? There's no place for the other to get in. I mean, when you see, beings mixing it up, someone's got an open center and someone gives them a defined center and so forth and so on, and you get all of these things. If you're a quad, your wisdom, whatever wisdom you're going to have in this life, is in each and every one of those receptors. You see, they're not here to change the way in which you process. They're here to give you the full potential of those aspects that you have. And you need to move through those different beings. It cannot come from one. Truly, it cannot. And it isn't to say statistically or mathematically that that isn't possible, but that's not the way the process works. Each of these different combinations, if you're a quad, look at your relationship to the people around you. If one person over here connects a couple of centers this way and another person connects a few over here on another side, or whatever the configurations are, all of that is healthy. If they're all connecting up the same things, that's a problem. See, everything about wholeness for a quadruple split is unique bonds. A whole selection of unique bonds. The bond that brings those aspects together, these aspects together, other combinations together. And you see, the moment that the quadruple split is operating correctly according to their strategy and authority, as long as they're giving themselves time. You know, when I first started, I didn't want to tell anybody that it took 7 years to decondition because I figured nobody would want to wait. Because everybody is hung up with this whole thing about time. Everybody is caught up in instant gratification. If you're caught up in instant gratification as a quadruple split, you're really going to be in trouble. Because it doesn't work that way. You can tell already in the way in which you are as a being that you need several different kinds of interactions as ways of getting you to that place of single-pointedness, that place where you can be absolutely correct in the decision that you're going to make. It takes patience. It takes awareness. It takes time. The assumption that people have that they're going to miss things. You know, the assumption that if they don't do it now, it will not get done. When it comes to awareness, this is just simple folly. When it comes to awareness, there is only time. There is only time. See, the beauty of being a quadruple split is that you really have enormous tools for being able to express your differentiation. That fine fixedness that is there in you, that is incorruptible because the essence of those centers cannot be touched by the other. And this perfect pointedness then gets totally lost in all those bridges. Just lost. And that single pointedness disappears. And the various qualities of half-life take over. And there is this pain there. There is. And you see, when the quadruple split is not correct, the other ultimately feels closed out. Closed out. There's no room for them. You know, they can only be of service, nothing more. And of course, for the quadruple split, this is deeply, deeply painful. See, it's all about the perfection of your connections. This is who you are. You are the ultimate connective type. You cannot afford a random crowd. You know, everything about the environment around you socially is an environment that is carefully selected. Carefully selected. And the only way that you can do that is through the way in which it's correct for you, however your strategy and authority operates. And it's only then that you're going to build that coterie of beings who become the allies of your single-pointedness. Because that's what they do. You know, this is where your perfection lies. Think about how complex that is and what what a burden that is if you're not self. When you think about the split definition, just a simple split, two areas defined separate from each other, their whole life is determined by that bond. And how special it is to find those right connections to fill that bond as whatever. As a quadruple split, it's so much more complex. And it can never be about one person. It can't. You know, no one person can ever be the be-all and the end-all. And you have to know that. It does not diminish what is possibly there for you in relationship to them. It does not diminish that at all. But it's simply something to grasp about who you are. That there are going to be many in that sense, a group in that sense of beings who are essential instruments for you. Now for the left angle cross beings, it's going to be easier to note this, to recognize them. But for the right angle, don't be concerned. They'll bump into you. They'll be there. It's just how you deal with them. Because you must understand something. If you're not following a strategy and authority in the decision-making process, you're really going to get lost. Not only are you going to get lost in the homogenized process, but you're going to be a half-life in that process. You know, there's going to be a part of you that slowly begins to die away. It's not what you're here for. It isn't. It isn't. You know, one of the things to grasp about being a quadruple split is that you have to be whole within yourself. And you can only do that through the care that you take and the bonds that you establish in this life, to make sure that you're not isolated on the outside in that sense, to make sure that there are those that are only there because it's correct for them to be there. Beware of, you know, those that do not belong, those that you have not asked or whatever to come in. You have to be deeply selective in your process. You know, it's a rarity, this 0.63% of humanity. Yet 2 or 1 out of every several hundred beings in a planet of 7 billion, it adds up. There's a lot of you out there, and you have your lives, and you have a right to experience the gifts that are inherent in your design. You can't get there by yourself. You cannot. You get there through your wisdom in terms of how you connect to the other beings. It is the connection that's everything. And it's not about you need that connection. That connection fulfills a dynamic in you. It allows information to move from A to B to C to D, whatever the case may be. And as long as you understand that it's not there to transform the way in which you think and alter the way in which you behave, but it is something to take advantage of so that you can be whole, that guided by your strategy and authority, that's exactly what you will get. The single-pointedness. It is the most important thing of all. For a quadruple split, that is the Holy Grail. You know, this is the exalted state, is single-pointedness. And it's not single-pointedness that arises spontaneously in the moment. There's no such thing. It is a single-pointedness that emerges holistically as all of those aspects in you begin to integrate their awareness with each other. Out of that arises this single-pointedness, this ability for you to fulfill what it is that you are here for, according to your purpose, your cross, whatever the case may be. So take this warning, great care in all your relationships. May no relationship be random. May all your relationships be a byproduct of your awareness. And then you get to experience the quad's life. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And until next time, bye for now.
I can do nothing but wait. I sit alone with my head through the sky. Yes, I'm wondering and never asking why. I just see inside, see inside.